Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and today is going to be a rant again. Because once again, we have something occurring in the games industry that is one of the things that will definitely set me off every time I see it happening. And that is, we have once again another games industry person, whether it be a games journalist or a games developer or a publisher. But here we have another example of someone who at one time was relevant to the gaming industry and has not been really relevant in the last decade, I'd say, but thinks he's still relevant. And here he is poking at gamers again because they had the audacity to complain about an announcement for an upcoming game. And you might say, Coach, what game are you talking about now? Well, I mentioned this briefly with a couple people in my comments that I saw an announcement in the last week or so. I think it was last week, where Ubisoft announced that Beyond Good and Evil 2 was going to require an always online internet connection, even though it has been pitched as a game that you could play both single player and multiplayer. But of course, this is another one of those games where they don't actually mean single player because it's a shared world that they claim you can play single player. I wish these companies would just stop saying that any of these games are single player when they're going to require a constant online connection and that they're actually a shared world game where stuff you do in the game will affect the world. That isn't a single player game. So I wish to God that these companies would stop trying to pitch these games to the people who actually are single player only players or primarily single player only gamers who just want that experience without other people. Believe it or not, there's still a market. I discussed this week. Has the last couple of years not taught these people that single player games still sell remarkably well and that they still get massive critical acclaim? Do we need to look further than just the last handful of years? When you look at games like God of War, Spider-Man, going back to last year, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, even Mario Odyssey, let's go back to Witcher 3. These are some of the most high-profile, highly rated, highest-selling games of the last few years. Yet we're constantly being told that all we want, us stupid gamers, is online-only games, and every game has to have multiplayer. And so who came up to the plate to attack gamers this week but Mr. Irrelevancy himself, David Jaffe. Now, if you're not familiar with who David Jaffe is, he used to be a big deal. He was a game designer and game director for the old Twisted Metal series back in the 90s and early 2000s. He also was the director, the creative director and the game director for God of War 1 and God of War 2. So this guy has worked on some very high-profile franchises over the years. Except now, if you're not familiar with his latest work, well, that's because the last game he had failed abysmally, which just coincidentally happened to be a multiplayer PvP shooter. Which is so ironic that now he's going to the route of attack that he's going to take by telling gamers that the only games in his mind that apparently sell are multiplayer only games because that's what people buy. Ubisoft sells multiplayer only games and that's what people buy. Because no one wants single player, according to this guy. Even though all of this evidence points to the contrary, that there's still a massive and successful market for well-made single player games, which he, at one point, made. God of War 1 and 2 were good games back when they first came out, in the 2000s. But this guy, no. Instead, he made this game called Drawn to Death. Are you familiar with it? It came out last year. Are you familiar with it? Probably not, because nobody played it. It sits at a 56 on Metacritic, and Sony has announced that they're pulling the game off of their servers in March of 2019. Less than 2 years after the game went live. And by the way, this game was offered for free on PSN when it launched. This was a free game if you had PlayStation Plus, and he still couldn't get anyone to play it. And it reviewed terribly, and his studio shut down earlier this year. Now, I don't want to dance on the grave of his studio. I will make fun of the name of the studio because it has the most pretentious possible name in the history of game studios. The Bartlett Jones Supernatural Detective Agency. Good Lord. The level of pretentiousness in a name like that is mind-blowing. But congratulations. So that studio shut down. And the previous studio that he worked at also shut down. But don't worry about it. I'm not trying to gloat about that. I'm just pointing out some facts. That his last 2 games, he had Twisted Metal came out in 2012, which he admits barely broke even. Which, by the way, is admitting that it actually did make some cash. It didn't lose money. But he can still considers it a failure. And the studio is no longer with us. And his current studio is completely shut down. And now it sounds like he's just bitter at gamers because the last 5 to 10 years of his career have been completely wasted. Especially the last 5 years. And you want to know what? That does suck. And he probably has every reason to feel bitter about that. But he clearly is bitter at gamers. Because this week, when people found out that Beyond Good and Evil 2 was going to be a game that required a constant online connection and that you couldn't actually play it offline, people got upset about that because that's what gamers do when you take a formerly single-player only franchise and throw multiplayer into it. David, have you not seen what's happened very recently with a certain high-profile franchise that used to be single-player only and now has decided to make the game multiplayer? Have you talked to your people at Bethesda lately? Maybe you should go work for them. Maybe you could go replace Todd Howard at Bethesda. Let's get another person in there who doesn't understand the gaming landscape. So this week, he went on a Twitter rampage, and he even has a YouTube video posted, which you can check out now. And on his Twitter feed, and in this video, he has used the following terms and derogatory names for gamers. Once again, the old standby, we're entitled, we're naive, we're stupid morons, we're all a-holes, we're whining crybabies. That's right, this guy, who by the way has nothing to do with Ubisoft or this franchise, has to go on the offensive to try to make his name relevant again and attack gamers in the Jason Schreier manner where every player is a whining crybaby. So I'm going to go on the offensive because these gamers have the temerity to say that they don't want every single AAA game that comes out to be requiring an online connection. Especially when Ubisoft does it, because Ubisoft does it in a way half the time that is totally unnecessary. When you play some of their single-player games, they still require online connections just so you can access their microtransaction store. And there's been times when, say, the internet is down, or PSN is down, or Xbox Live, or Uplay, which is Ubisoft's own play launcher, that when those services sometimes go down, you can't even access their games because they require you to be online only, even if it's a single-player game, because they have to get those microtransactions out of you. Even in Far Cry 5, if you bought a normal in-game gun, not even a microtransaction gun, just an in-game gun with microtransaction money, it had to quickly load into the Ubisoft store, and then you see a little transaction processing, loading, buffering screen as you bought the gun, and because of course Ubisoft, everything has to be online these days. Well, players are sick of it, David. And you say, well, that's the only thing that people buy. No, it's actually not. The reason why these games sell is because that's pretty much the only type of games that these publishers deign to make for us anymore. EA, Activision, Ubisoft, now Bethesda, apparently every game needs to be online. Players don't want that. The reason why they buy these games is because that is literally all that's being offered. And when the massive amount of advertising money and advertising revenue is being shipped out the door to unwitting customers who are maybe watching the Super Bowl or watching their sitcom at night or whatever, the regular gamers who don't really pay attention to the industry, they see these games coming out and they go out and buy them because that's the only games that they see advertised. Yet, when a good single-player game actually comes out and is great, people snap it up by the millions and millions, and they get great reviews, and they win Game of the Year. Unlike Drawn to Death, which won nothing except you getting a boot out of the industry. And for you to go onto Twitter and to make your little video disparaging gamers who voice their opinion because, God forbid, the players explain to developers what we actually want. Oh no, you always gotta blame it on the vocal minority. It's the vocal minority. It's just the vocal minority. Don't worry about the vocal minority. I don't see anyone stepping up being like, yeah, hells yeah, I can't wait to play this online-only single-player game, shared world. I don't see anyone, marching in the streets for that. But you do see people upset in the other way. But you always, if it ever goes against your narrative, it's the vocal minority. It's absurd. And here this guy is, using the vocal minority fallacy, and the gamers are entitled bullcrap that we hear again and again, when literally all we're doing as customers is trying to relay to these developers what we actually want. I know it's a crazy theory that customers will explain to companies what they want, but yet the companies never want to give it to us because they just want to suck every last dollar out of us. Every time. Even though we greatly reward companies that do it right. Consistently reward companies that do it right. For years now. But these other big publishers just don't want to pay attention. They just want to keep hopping on the EA and Activision gravy train. We have to have our yearly revenue be over 50% microtransactions, otherwise we're a failure. Yeah. And this is what this guy's defending. And saying that people are only interested in that type of game. And then he made a tweet saying, hey, all you whiny crybabies who want Beyond Good and Evil 2 to be offline, I made a little video for you. And I invite everyone watching this video now, when the video is over, please go to David Jaffe's channel and watch this video. He claims that he's not taking this seriously. I would suggest that he is taking it extremely seriously. If you watch the tone of his video, if this is someone who's not taking this seriously, then he should stop game development altogether and go in Hollywood, because he could win an Academy Award for acting. Because he certainly seems pretty fired up in his video. Maybe not as fired up as I am right now, but that's just because I am sick and tired of being attacked by the idiots in the games industry who are so completely out of touch with today's players that they think that everything has to be their way and they're going to jam it down our throat and tell us exactly what we want, and if we don't like it, we just got to sit down and shut up. He's actually using, in the video, he uses the EA Battlefield 5 excuse. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Wow. That works so well for EA. I can't believe there's people still with the level of stupidity that would use that excuse after what just happened. How many examples? Between Fallout 76 going from single player to multiplayer with a franchise that was always single player, and with Battlefield 5 using the if you don't like it, don't buy it excuse, and both of these games bombing, you'd think that someone at the end of the year in 2018 would have half of a concept that maybe, just maybe, the winds of change are blowing through the games industry, especially the player base, who is actually fed up. And you see these games as a service titles, their sequels are getting less and less sales. Even Call of Duty, which is the highest selling game of the year, saw less sales. Activision was upset because it didn't have as high as sales at launch as World War II. And yet these people still insist that it's us gamers, we're the idiots. No, you just want to treat us like we're idiots so that we will buckle down and buy your multiplayer game so that you guys can siphon more money out of our wallets. And you know what the best part is? I've never even played Beyond Good and Evil before. I don't even care about this franchise. It's something I was mildly interested in. But when I saw the announcement last week that the game's going to be multiplayer, you have to have that online connection, I just rolled my eyes. I looked and I said, just why? Why does every game require an internet connection? And some of his reasoning is, hey guys, it's 2018, what, you don't have a good internet connection? No, actually, David, some people don't. I know it's crazy. I know people who live out in California think that everyone just has a great internet connection. But guess what? Across the planet, no, not everyone does. Some people, like the people who watch me who live in Australia, tell me that they just have horrendous internet connection. Even here in the United States, where they repeal net neutrality, and Comcast and other service providers have gone back to throttling service whenever they feel like it. Oh, it's not peak time, so we're going to throttle service. And you're going to sit here and have the temerity to try to tell people that, hey, it's 2018, why don't you get a better internet connection, guy? That's literally your excuse? That's your reasoning. Get out of my face. I haven't even thought about David Jaffe in years, because I was never a Twisted Metal fan. Now, I liked the old God of War games. I played the old Twisted Metal games. My brother really liked it when we were kids. I really didn't care about Twisted Metal. But congratulations, guy. Way to go. Making headlines. Once again, finally, after 10 years, you're making headlines again for attacking gamers. Congratulations. You really did. You did a great service to the industry there. Thanks for once again piling on gamers, the people who keep the entire industry afloat, the people that supported you for 2 decades plus. Now you're bitter at us because it's our fault that your last game sucked. So sorry that no one played your game. I don't know, maybe you haven't pieced this little bit together. Independent PvP multiplayer games almost never are successful, so congratulations. Good job. And we're supposed to listen to your market analysis? Please. You couldn't even do it properly for yourself. So I would thank you kindly to stop with the name calling. Stop calling people entitled, naive, stupid. I would suggest you are all of these things. Because you have no concept about the player base. You proved it yourself because your last game was... It would have been one of the lowest rated games of the entire generation if it wasn't for Fallout 76. So like I said, why don't you hustle over to Bethesda, because they have a stockpile of incompetence over there. So why don't you hop over there? That seems to be where you're most needed, because your glory days were also in the early 2000s, just like Bethesda's. So congrats. Good job, dude. Way to go. That's all I got today. If I sound a little bit vitriolic, that's because I am. Because story after story after story, led by games journalist Jason Schreier, the great Jason Schreier, and every single AAA publisher. Now we even have to get retreads like David Jaffe coming out of the woodwork 10 years later to dump on us too. Congrats, dude. Pfft, congrats. Everyone, please go to his channel and check out his video. And you can listen to him insult us for yourself. I hope you will enjoy it. Go to his Twitter feed. I'm not saying to go attack the guy. I'm not trying to start a hate mob. But just go look at what he had to say. And then realize that this is the level of thinking and stupidity that is running rampant in the games industry today. They have no concept about gamers at all in 2018. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I know some people don't like it when I rant. Some people really do like it when I rant. But I am legitimately sick and tired of listening to this garbage come out of these people's mouths who have no concept what they're talking about in this day and age. People are actually turning against these online games. I know they sell because that's where all of the marketing money goes. It doesn't go into single-player games. All of the marketing goes into multiplayer. And when the rare times when single-player games do get the marketing push, guess what? They sell millions and millions and millions of copies and are hugely successful. But anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel head forward. And for God's sake, as always, keep it turned to 11.